Yeah. I mean, these upcoming games are so important for Jackson and for the entire field. Anytime a Nigel Richards plays in an event, he's a threat to just run away from it. And this is not one of the events where they take the top two and play a best of five. It is just straight best record after 31. If Nigel starts 14 and 0, it is going to be darn near impossible for anybody to run him down in this WoW Lexicon division. So this is a lot of drama early on in this one. Will we see a Nigel runaway, or can Jackson finally slow him down?
Question in the chat of, is this a best of match at the end? Or is my brain playing tricks on me where I see Vincent Vega from Pulp Fiction on screen waiting for Orry? Is that a hallucination or is that real? So yeah, the answer to that question, this is a straight up 31 gamer, no finals match. That is sort of how a lot of the championships used to be in North America until we started doing those matches, which opinions are mixed, Matt, about the merit of doing a short match at the end of a long tournament, but you cannot argue that it is pure cinema.
Oh, it's incredible. Anybody who watched the SPC last year, watched the best of five between Ian Weinstein and Mac Meller, knows that a best of five finals is so dramatic. But anybody who watched Jackson Smylie versus Rafi Stern in a winner take all for $10,000 match last year, that's also insane. So, both formats I think have their merit. But this is how this tournament is going to run. We got Jackson and Orry at the board now. Orry is probably the top expert. I have played more times than anybody. If you're not familiar with Orry's style, basically it can be summarized as I am going to destroy the board against you. If there are options that are pretty close in terms of sheer equity, Orry is almost always going to make the one that shuts down the board unless he's got a huge deficit. Boards end up getting so closed so fast in almost every game I see Orry play. So we'll see if Jackson is going to be able to navigate the trenches or stop Orry from building the wall in the first place here.
Yeah, Orry like a boa constrictor, pretty much. But something that's underrated too about Orry is if he gets out to an early deficit in a game, he is so, in my experience, so annoying to play against. There's so many games where I say to myself, how the hell is Orry still in this game? How is he not dead to rights? And there are games that he's played against me that he's come back to win through pure ingenuity and creativity that just are kind of crazy because it goes against his normal boa constrictor style. But when he needs to, he can be super creative with his openings and ability to get back in the game, an attribute that I feel is shared between both of these two players. Jackson maybe not quite as wholeheartedly committed to the defensive style, but he can play that as well when he needs to. So two of the most tactical players in our midst, and should be a great game if the tiles even remotely cooperate. Or are you about to kick us off here?
Yeah, this is going to be a treat. If you're going to pivot away from Nigel, you got to make it entertaining, but entertaining this one should be.
Yeah, no question. So Orry grabs those letters. This is a key game within the context of the tournament. All of these players are angling to be the player with the most realistic chances of running down Nigel. I hesitate to say this, Matt, but I think it's fair to say that Nigel is not going to end this tournament undefeated. Somebody is going to beat him. And when that happens, the other players here are going to try to be the ones that are in position to capitalize. And it looks like Orry might be starting off this game with a bang here. Euthan.
Yep.
Yeah, Euthan. The only bingo available. Great job by him to spot this within seconds. But look at Jackson. He's going to be poised, I should say, to strike back with something, I'm sure.
Wow, yeah. Okay, so a blank bingo for each player to start, but Jackson looks like he should have, maybe a double-double or at least a high-scoring bingo. And he's got nothing good at all. 72 is his highest score, and that's kind of a suicide option. 68 is otherwise the most Jackson's going to be able to score. This could be a time trap turn for Jackson.
Yeah, no question. I would say number one and number 1A, 1A and 1B options would be 8-letter words through the O that hit 2 doubles, or 8-letter words ending or starting with H. And you would think there might be something like that, maybe something ending in CH, that nice combination, but nothing doing. But we know that with the click of a button into our engine. The players do not know that and are going to have to grind a little bit harder. Jackson's going to have to think much harder to come to that conclusion. And yeah, you said it, Matt. The highest scoring play, be crime right here, putting an E out in space. That feels very scary, even though Orry's rack literally is random as can be. He's just drawn 7 fresh tiles. I guess you actually know that it's maybe a little bit weaker than random because he cannot have a blank on his rack. Normally, you would have to put that into the equation, but because one of them is played and the other is on your rack, you don't have to worry about a blank bingo triple. I don't think that sways anything in favor of playing Be Crime, though, Matt.
Yeah, you can't put that E in the 7th spot of a triple for just 4 points. But oh my goodness, this is very challenging for Jackson. I would sit here for 7 minutes on this turn looking for anything at all. And it looks like he's gonna end up having to play Burnicle through that blank N if he sees it, which is a tall task with some blank blindness. Oh, man.
Burnicle. Not the easiest play to come up with, but yeah, maybe that is, if you're not going to play Be Crime, that's probably the play. I guess you could also play Beachier and things like that through the H for only a 1-point sacrifice. So maybe that's actually okay to do as well. I think, does this look like, yeah, Jackson has Burnicle set up on his rack, so he might be thinking about that, which that would frankly be a really nice job by him to get off of this rack within basically 3 minutes and change and find what we think is either the best play or something close to it.
Yeah, there are very few players in this room who are going to play a turn this challenging as fast as Jackson seems to have come to this conclusion. 3 minutes is a long time to spend on a turn, but this is a turn that I think a lot of other players get sucked into 5, 7, even 9 minutes.
Somebody in the chat mentioning, remember when Matt almost hit aneurysms against me? And I remember it like it was yesterday. That was an incredible. I almost wish you had hit that. But yeah, for those, again, just because it's been a little bit since our initial intro, I'm joined by Matt Canik, who I think has cemented himself as the GOAT commentator. I love listening to Matt. It is a total treat to have Matt alongside me for at least one session here for the Word Cup. Matt getting to watch Nigel for the first time. So we're all enjoying ourselves here on the stream today.
Absolutely. And if I'm not watching Nigel, Jackson and Orry are 2 of my best friends in the entire game as well. So I am just being treated to a wonderful Sunday afternoon here. Some calling me the GOAT commentator in chat. I consider myself 1B to the great Will Anderson, 1A. But hey, if I'm not the GOAT, then I think you are, Will. And if we can get us both together, we don't even have to have the debate. Let's just call some Scrabble and watch the true GOAT, Nigel, and North American GOAT, Jackson, play some Scrabble.
There's Sounds Burnicle. Great. Yeah, Burnicle, he's got there. So hasn't hit his clock yet, in fact. And yeah, he's got to do his paperwork of hitting that blank slip, which I think actually I can now get that up so I can confirm the blank designations. And in fact, this does appear to be an L. So no shenanigans with the blank designation. And we move on. So nicely done by Jackson to make what I think is the sanest option. He clearly saw Be Crime. He had it lined up, but has opted to sacrifice some points to avoid giving Orry easy plays back. And I think it's helped him a lot, as Orry probably would have something solid through an E in the triple lane. I'm not sure what, but his play is going to be much tougher here on a trickier board to work with. not even sure I see an absolute standout here, Matt, but certainly getting rid of some combo of the B and V would be paramount.
Yeah, Bevor plays to the right side of Bernicle, making Bo and ERs 30 points. But that just doesn't seem like the kind of play Orry likes to make. That creates more opportunity on this board and basically guarantees that this board is going to be open long term. Orry's already got a slim lead. Orry's on turn as well. This seems like the kind of turn where Orry would leave maybe 1 or 2 equity points on the table to take something more defensive. Maybe a play of Bop atop Euthan for 19. Maybe Vibe, like he's got set up as well. That V up at the top of this board is going to make it tough to get up to the top. We'll see what Orry does here.
Yeah, it looks like Vibe. I do feel that, yeah, Bevor would be tempting for a lot of players, but it's possible that, you know, placing the ER here, a lot of hooks to that. There are some hooks to BE as well, but maybe slightly easier to extend down the board. And if you imagine an R here, if you do extend down the board, it's going to hit a double, which might be a little bit more difficult to do after Vibe. So definitely appreciate this play from Orry. And both players kind of with tough post bingo draws, both of which contain a V. So very parallel pathways through this game for both players so far, Matt.
Yeah, blank bingo and then awkward V rack. Indeed, though Orry's racks have been slightly better than Jackson's in each of those first 2 turns. I wonder what Jackson's going to do here. Playing down to the Y with Goopy or Gloopy feels pretty strong here. You never like holding the V on your rack, but with a rack this bad, you just want to play long and get out. Maybe Vogue atop Euthan is another option, just 19, but you do shed the VG together. What do you like here, Will?
Yeah, very uninspiring options. You're shouting out Vogue right here. That seems okay. Another possibility might be to play Vogie here if you want to. Maybe the lipo lead is not particularly strong. You could use, you could get rid of an I. And then also Gloopy, maybe the first play that Jackson considered, scoring much better than those other options, but at a cost of leaving the V on the rack. I feel like I would really want to get that V off here almost no matter what. But if I wasn't going to do it, Gloopy would be the play I'd make. I'm leaning a little bit towards Vogue in my instinct. Maybe the engine influencing me as well. But I think those plays are super close. And did Jackson just draw driving? Looks like he did. That's going to fit alongside Vibe at the very least.
Wow, yeah, big pull for Jackson there. And I don't think Orry's going to obstruct this. He's got some strong plays here, but nothing that's going to take that away. The big question for Orry is if he spots what looks to be his slam dunk top option. There's 24 points available for him, but it is a tricky play to notice.
Yeah, I feel like my eye is drawn towards this spot. I would love to play something here. I would, maybe I want to play something through the E. I'm not necessarily looking here at the play of Puri, but I definitely think Orry is I was literally, as I was about to say, I think he's easily creative enough to spot it. He now has the relevant letters lined up on his rack. I guess the only question is he thinking about playing those here? And knowing Orry, there is no chance of that because of the Spoor hook. He's not playing Poor up there in a million years. If he plays those letters, it will be alongside Euthan.
Yeah, I wonder what he's going to do if he doesn't spot that. Maybe play super long and play Pornier through the I and Vibe.
That's 26. I mean, it's 26 points. That's solid. The thing about it, oh, wow. Whoa. I am proven wrong. Proven completely wrong. And that's crazy too, Matt, because I don't think there's any way that Orry could read Gloopy as Jackson doesn't have an S. First of all, you're using 5 tiles. He could easily have drawn one, and you could easily keep one after that play too. So it looks like maybe a miss by Orry to not see that those same letters play here for 3 more points. Not a huge miss by any means. Looks like only a couple points of valuation in simulation behind, but the S is now going to loom very large with the Spore hook.
Well, yeah, and Orry does not draw the S. I've watched enough Scrabble to know when you make a blunder and set up a hook, like you seem to draw that hook immediately all the time to make yourself look like a genius. But that does not happen here for Orry. Jackson dropping driving quickly, and Orry pulling all consonants into that ER in leave. Dicker is a word that does not get spelled the way you think it is, and that might be the play here for Orry.
Yeah, I'm drawing it on the board just to avoid all confusion. But, not only does the S get valuable with Spore, the S is also extra valuable here with drivings, which is valid. I'm quite confident that both players will feel emboldened to put an S on this too. So you could easily see that Orry playing Dicker immediately for 30 points, definitely his top play. But look at Jackson's draw. Oh my gosh, Matt, he could be on the verge of pulling even further ahead.
Yeah, I don't think there's any could about it. Jackson's already set up the bingo. It plays in one spot, so Jackson's probably going to pull the trigger in the next 15 seconds. Kyomas and Burnicles, the only playable bingo here for Jackson. 74 points. Jackson has bingoed on 3 of the first 4 turns if he pulls the trigger here.
Yeah, which I totally agree that he should do. And that's going to be a tough break, too, for Orry, who is probably hoping he can play unturned right now or unrented through the E of Burnicle. And both of those are about to get blocked here by this bingo. So an even tougher break for Orry Swift, unless he has something that I'm not seeing available. He just had multiple bingos get blocked.
Wow, yeah, when your bingo is blocked by your opponent's bingo, it is so frustrating, so tilt-inducing. Orry's got to stay calm here and just try to find a way to grind out this game, but that was a frustrating sequence for sure.
Yeah, so now this rack, which when you look at these tiles that Orry has, if you don't have a bingo playable, if you do, it's great. You're getting a good score with the extra 50. But if you don't, your decision just got significantly tougher. It's one of these classic Scrabble racks, Matt, where you've got all these low point tiles, but there's no great way to score. You have to try to balance. Do I want to pump up my score as much as possible or take a really pedestrian score and aim for a bingo as soon as possible? I think this board feels like it dictates going the points route over the leave route to me.
Yeah, I think you have to score a little bit now, and you have to create more opportunity. Orry's tunneled in on unmet through the M, and that feels like the right approach to me. Putting that T down in space at the bottom of this board is annoying for Jackson to deal with, and you're putting enough scoring pressure on that Jackson can't just pound out 30 and end this game now. So I like this from Orry quite a bit.
Yeah, I do too. The only other play that I was sort of had on my radar at all was when the board spins, I'll show you, was the play of Vend here off of the V would have scored a similar 24 points. The downside of this is you keep the hated U on your rack. The upside is you put a D out in space, which is probably going to sit there for a while in a lot of cases and represents a very nice long-term lane for you. But look at that. Ardently is now potentially available for Orry on his next turn just in the nick of time. Very difficult to see how Jackson is going to find a way to block that unless he goes with Zinco, which would be such a kick in the teeth for Orry if he does that, Matt.
Oh man, yeah. Zinco makes a lot of sense too. I mean, Zone down to the E in Kyomas feels pretty standard, but given the game state, Zinco makes a ton of sense for Jackson to play here. This is a mammoth of a turn.
Yeah, you can't know, of course, like either of those plays, for example, do not address a bingo starting with T going across the board. So Jackson might say, well, does Zinco block enough for me to take one fewer point and go into next turn with no vowels on my rack? Zone scores 33 to Zinco's 32, and at least you know for sure that you're going to have one vowel going into next turn, so you avoid those nightmare scenarios of having all consonants and needing to slow down to a crawl on that turn. So definitely some merit to playing zone. But if I'm Jackson at this score, he's up by what, 55. I feel like every bingo lane you can block is a good idea here. And I wonder, what is he getting set to play with NIT? Oh, he might be wanting to play here, Matt, to try to hold on to the Z for later, but block the spoor hook. Is that on his radar?
That seems rather crazy. He is ahead, but not by enough, I think, that he can justify a huge sacrifice. I think he was looking at it to figure out what can I draw? If I hold this Z, are there possibilities I can score 50 or 60 with it next turn? Jackson does that a lot. When you've got a JQXZ on your rack, look at your best play that plays it off, but also find some of your top options that don't and see if you can threaten 50 or 60. We saw Nigel do that last game. Jackson seeing if there's an opportunity. I'm not seeing one for him on this turn, though.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, to find your way to Zinco here, I mean, there's going to be situations where you're happy to have played zone, right? Like you could easily just draw a bunch of consonants and have to slow down completely. But yeah, I just feel like at this score, I would not want to let a turn go by without addressing some kind of bingo threat. And I just don't know that zone does that well enough. So I guess there is a concern, though. We should note that if Orry has an S, when you play Zinco, you are giving a ton back. Admittedly, the S does also play here, so perhaps it's not as big of an issue if you're just going to lean into it. But I think the worst case scenario after Zinco is, what if Orry has two S's and he hits you with a 50-point play here and a 50-point play here? You have terrible low point tiles because you just kept NTT and didn't draw, and you drew LNR or something like that. You could easily see your lead evaporate quickly. So it's easy for me or for us to sit here and say, oh, Zinco, please. But there are plenty of concerns that Jackson might have.
Zinco doesn't actually block ardently. It plays through the T and Youthin as well. So I think
Oh, there
I
you
botched the call
go.
there just a little bit. Yeah, chat's been
I
screaming
didn't
at us
see
for about
that.
45 seconds. So
Oh,
thanks for
my
keeping us
bad.
accountable.
Thanks,
No, no,
chat. So
I fell into it too.
yeah, fair enough. Didn't even look there. Thanks, everybody. So, yeah, that makes it even crazier to imagine Jackson somehow not getting bingoed on. And maybe now that we know that, zone looks a little bit better just to go into next turn with a vowel and be able to, strike back more effectively. So, zone the play for Jackson. That is the play the engine likes, for the record, for those that put stock in that. And I certainly feel like it's always a great starting point. I expect ardently to come down. Whoa, there we go. Orry was about to play Anardly or something like that, but of course he was going to catch that. So big swing for Orry to be able to bingo from that otherwise somewhat challenging rack. Although he had the Y, a couple of good scoring options, right? Like he could have played D, Y, E and zoned, which would have scored well. But of course, the bingo superior by far. And we continue on with the game even more knotted up than it was before, Matt.
Yeah, but Jackson's still with this lead, and now most of the bingo lines evaporating on this board. He's got to be tunneled in on the spoor hook. And FIT just feels so natural for him. FIT in exactly this spot. He has no points almost anywhere on the board. This is about as much as he can score, and he can knock out the threat. You got to do this, right, Will?
Yeah, I totally agree. As you say, Matt, you don't even have to sacrifice points from some other option on the board to make that play. There is no other option for Jackson that scores any better than just playing fit right now. The SF combination, almost impossible to use. Nobody's playing anything like misfit 99.9% of the time, and even then it's not that big a deal. So yeah, great job by Jackson to address the most salient threat on the board. And even though his lead is kind of in that tenuous zone, he's got to be feeling very, very good about the state of this board. I would say the one X factor are the three S's, all of which are still in the bag, can result in very good scoring plays right here or potentially bingos right here. Those are easily the most important tiles left in this game.
And Orry having none of them has to feel like a long shot to win this game, but Jackson knocking out Spoor instead of playing Sift in that spot has to tell Orry that Jackson didn't have any of them last turn either. So if I'm Orry, I'm now looking to try to play off as many of these tiles as I can to get into that bag and find an S before Jackson can. He set up Aioli to play off 5 tiles and draw 5 tiles. Aioli would play on the right side of driving, making NA and a GI. And it looks like only the W in this bag is going to punish Orry in that spot, although Jackson would end up getting a bingo in response.
Wow, Lineate would go down immediately after that, which would be a devastating blow to Orry. I just feel like it's a little weird to score 15 points for Aioli when you've got a simple 30 on offer for View, which is maybe he's thinking about that. 15 points is a lot to give up in a game where you might, if you're Orry, you might be able to draw the X, draw the Q with some support for it, and outscore your way back into this game. It's not impossible. And if you make plays like Aioli too often, that winning pathway is going to evaporate for you. So I do feel like View is somewhat the natural play. Not sure if he has a particular reason for eschewing that play in favor of Aioli, but in this particular case, a lot is riding on his choice with Lineate on Jackson's rack.
Yeah, huge turn here for Orry. View just seems like it loses this game a lot. Like if you play View, you're still trailing 13. Jackson is on turn. Jackson can block basically every threat all at once. But I guess with just enough stuff unseen, J, Q, S, 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 X, you can draw an S, you can hit drivings, you can still steal this game often enough. I think View is probably worth it. I don't think you have to get crazy too aggressive here.
To your point, it is fair that Orry probably hates crippling his ability to bingo eventually with a play here. He probably cannot love that. But you know, I think the points and possibility of drawing an S with something good and just getting your way almost immediately back into this game, if you can draw a good tile. Wow, W, X, N. All right, no S's for Orry, but some good stuff that he should be able to score decently with somewhere. Certainly up here, you can plop your X down for a good score, depending on what you want, whatever you want to play there. So Jackson without this is exactly the same situation Orry was in with the unrented rack being blocked, where Jackson does not have any really good scoring plays here. The best plays he has, Matt, are to the F up here, which do nothing to address the openness of the board. If he wants to block over here, he's going to have to sacrifice a lot of points to do it.
Yeah, this is a challenging turn now. If Jackson had any tiles that scored points, you would just play those through the E and kind of close the door on this one, but nothing to do to block. Jackson's going to play Fetal up top. I think it's very important that you play off an A there with 5 more in the bag. you're almost a lock to draw at least one. So if you are going to play up top, a lot of players I think would drop FIE. I like Jackson's decision not just to play the A, but to play off a lot of tiles and go looking for an S.
Yeah, fantastic choice by Jackson there. There's no need to admire your balanced bingo leave when the board is just nowhere close to supporting those good bingo leaves, as Orry instantly plays Wold for 30, keeping the X in reserve. Very nice play and very confidently made too, scoring 30 with his W and keeping that X for another turn to follow up with another 30. Clearly, Orry is continuing his hopes of getting back into this game with the scoring approach, Matt.
Yeah, this is what Orry does well, and he's drawn Taxi Man, which doesn't fit. But wow, Orry does this often, where he just won't go away. You said this before the game, but it's like I feel like I should be able to slam the door on this one and win, and Orry just scores and scores and scores and scores, and all of a sudden he's caught up to you without even getting that bingo down. He's on track to do that here, but Jackson with his J is going to score big on this turn.
Yeah, great play. This does so many things that Jackson is going to like here. It blocks the E and W for bingo lanes. It cripples the S hook on drivings, which again, Jackson does not have. Gets rid of his J and scores very well. That play just did everything that Jackson could possibly have wanted, and he stands a fantastic chance. These S's have been lurking forever, Matt. At some point, they are going to come out onto someone's rack. I predict that.
At some point, somebody will draw one. Yes. I'm focused on Orry right now, trying to figure out if he can set up Axeman and if it's worth doing that. If he plays Gig and It for like 7 points, and then back hooks Gig to make Giga and Axeman next turn,
Well,
I
you
think
can
that doesn't work.
too. You can't because you need to redraw. Well, you could redraw an A or an E for Axemen or Axeman if you play an A here. I don't know if is that good enough? And will Jackson just be able to block it a lot of the time? I mean, in fact, he will now. Any setup you make, Jackson's drawn all 3 S's, Matt. Oh, my God.
Wow. Yeah, you can't afford to do that setup with 3 S's unseen. You're just going to get hit with squat or something in that vein way too often. Jackson's going to have a tile to block it. Got to try to set up something with your X here, though, if you're Orry, and I don't know what that's going to be.
Yeah, I do worry about taking the patient approach. I mean, there are plays that are kind of nice, like playing just Axe right here, scores 33. That gets Orry very, very close again on the scoreboard. In fact, he's right behind Jackson after that play. But again, you have to expect that Jackson is going to come back with some kind of a good score, and it's going to leave you exactly where you started in a situation just like this, trailing by 30 or so points on an extremely dead board. So I do feel like Orry is, look at that. You're so right, Matt. Orry is seriously considering just playing It, setting up Axeman and Giga. It's never going to stay open, but what a creative idea that would be.
Yeah, that if this board were just a little bit more open, if there were one other bingo line that Jackson had to focus on, then you could get away with a play like that. Or he's so good at thinking of things like this. You're worried about the bingo, and I'm going to punch you for 60 in the bottom corner, but his board is just too closed, and there are too many S's unseen.
Yeah, it's so creative. It's also a play that if I'm Jackson and I see Orry play this is going to set off the mother of all alarm bells, right? Like, what in the world would motivate you to just play It there? I think Jackson's going to know 10 times out of 10, 100 times out of 100, Orry is up to something and I need to mess with it. And without some other plan, like you said, Matt, somewhere else on the board, it's never going to work. So Orry plays AM instead of the X, holding on to the X in the hopes of maybe setting it up somewhere else on a future turn. I can't quite figure out what his plan is for that X right now, though.
Yeah, you can't draw into IXTLE next to Jing. Uh, Ixia's, maybe if you draw IS specifically, was in play, but I don't
Oh,
think that this
sure.
seems to hit anything specifically.
Right. So going for just Ixias here, which is a little bit, it could be kind of difficult for Jackson to address this if he doesn't have literally an I. That's it. There's no other way to play alongside there. So the number of letters that parallel in G is very low. So Orry might be gambling that if that tile is in the bag and allows me to draw IS for Ixias, maybe Jackson is literally powerless to address the spot. That's kind of cool, actually. How would he, if Jackson didn't have an I, how would he even address that?
Yeah, that's interesting. It just kind of sits there.
A 2 tile play right here, a 2 point play right here. That might be literally it.
This is
Crazy.
interesting from Jackson now. He's knocking out the spot to plunk the X, EX, and XI. He's taking that away. Huh.
Yeah, must be specifically wanting to remove those X threats from the board, or he could have plopped it down here for a solid score. Could have done that last turn too, but that could be a nice. That definitely saves a little bit of damage on the scoreboard for Jackson to take that X spot away right now. So seems like actually a pretty solid move. And the nice thing about it too is he's kept his eye in case he were to draw something here. I actually don't. What did Jackson keep on that? Looks like he kept
AISS.
right. So he's drawn QU together, which is fantastic timing on that draw.
Yeah. Jackson finding SSS and then QU together swung this hugely in his advantage. I'm not seeing almost any Hail Mary Orry can even pull out now, unless he fishes once again for Ixia. As we know, it's not in the bag, but from his perspective, it could be.
Yeah, it's worth noting as well, seeing in chat pointed out that for Jackson, there is an absolutely devastating option of playing Puri and Quoit. He has this. He can tack his S on if he wants to. So there is basically, thanks to that play, there's really no pathway for Orry to outscore his way back into this at this point, which he probably has come to grips with already. He's probably thinking, what can I do that gives me any chance whatsoever of bingoing in this game? Because that's probably what he needs in order to get back in it. Is he getting set to maybe play Dan right here and go for, I don't even know what, Matt?
Yeah, I think he's Oxide is not there. Untaxed couldn't really be drawn. No, yeah, that's not there either. Maybe he's gonna try to draw Cuddy. He's just gonna get hit by Cuddy far too often, or Quids or something.
I have no idea what you're supposed to do here. This is certainly a grim situation. I don't see a lot of hope for the X. I don't know where he's going to go. Or he's so creative. If there is a pathway for him here, I'm sure he's going to come up with it. I feel like that is one of his calling cards as a player. But again, though, there are some situations where there just isn't anything that gives you that much of a chance. Could be what we're looking at here.
Orry is so good in these situations, though. I don't know what he's going to play yet, but whatever he plays, you and I are going to be able to find some way that with the miracle draw, he's going to be able to win the game. He's just got to figure out what that play is and what the miracle draw he's going to fish for is. Noah Walton chat suggesting ROID and Puri. That would set up the A front hook, but with 3 other A's unseen. I think QAT and avoid blocks that most of the time.
Yeah, similar principle, I guess, would be Droit. You could play Droit there, setting up a Droit has all the same problems, maybe even more so. If the bag consists of like if you play Droit and the bag is like what would even, so you would be giving up DRIT. I don't even know what you're supposed to draw because you need the A's to be in the bag. You probably don't want to draw them. Yeah, that's an interesting idea to at least give Jackson something to think about for sure.
Even if you draw anti-sex, it's going to end up getting blocked. So
Yeah.
I think Orry's just done, but he's going to use all of that clock that he's got and try to find 5% win in a situation that looks to be 0% otherwise.
Good clock management by both players. I feel like this game has not been the easiest to navigate. There have been some tough situations, but both players have a good amount of time to think hard in this pre-end game, which is no surprise given how strong they both are. It's very tough to routinely make it through a challenging game with enough time to think at the very end, and they have accomplished that. But very tactical, interesting game. Hard to really point to. If we look back at the moves in this game, I'm having a hard time finding any move from either player that I feel that strongly that they should not have done. That very crisply played game by these two.
Yeah, perhaps the POOR play from Orry, leaving a few points on the board. My dog, not a fan of that play either. He's chiming in. But yeah, otherwise, very, very well played from both sides. Just sometimes Jackson bingos 3 of the first 4 turns and hangs on to win.
Mm. Yeah, it doesn't feel like a score that indicates that the bingos were flying that fast early on. 365. I feel like for these players, you're routinely going to see not just 400s, but every so often some 500s and above. But given Orry's style in particular, he is more than comfortable playing in those 300-point games. Jackson, really no different. I feel like he is very comfortable on all types of boards. So not a surprise to see a low scorer here. Yeah, this is just tough. Being in Orry's shoes where you're trying like heck to come up with any kind of winning scenario, and Orry just sort of playing Axe, realizing probably that getting rid of the X is, there's really no upside for it that can help him that much. That's kind of, I don't know if I want to say that's like a give up play necessarily, Matt, but it might be somewhat close to that given the game situation. Maybe trying to draw the Q and keep the outscoring dream alive, as we see that is not in the cards.
Yeah, overhead Mike will let us know about the last couple moves from Orry. AM, what was he fishing for? Was it actually looking for IS to hit Ixias, or was there something even bigger out there? And then I do think that's probably throwing in the towel. Maybe if you draw 2 vowels, like an A and a U, and the other U's in the bag, and Jackson's stuck with the Q but no U, something interesting could happen. But yeah, I think it just score points and lose is probably the approach there from Orry.
Well, if we look at this score, I guess if I'm Orry, maybe the most realistic way that I might be able to win this game revolves around the drivings hook. I feel like if there's any chance that Jackson is not sure of that word and I am sure of it, maybe what I need to do is score as much as I can with my X, try to draw the S, hope that if Jackson has an S, he's not willing to try this hook and that I am. And all of a sudden, I get 36 points for that, which in a game this close, depending on what Jackson has, that could really make a pretty big difference in the end game. Is that a way to think about this position, Matt?
That could be it. Yeah, hoping to draw an S, hoping Jackson has to make a weird play to shed the Q off of his rack and trying to just outrun. I know Orry has made stories for all of the ing words that take an S behind them.
I've heard
He's got
those.
one story for every letter of the alphabet. You can ask him about any one of those. I think he poached that idea from Matthew Tunnicliffe, who's here in chat. I think I falsely accredited that idea to Orry a few streams ago, so need to give credit where it's actually due. But Orry does have those. He's got those words all but down.
Yeah. So cat, look at that. No other really good place to play the Q, I suppose. So is that, what do we think about that? That's an interesting choice to just go ahead and empty the bag and get rid of the Q. I feel like it seems reasonable to empty the bag. The Q out in space doesn't really do anything. And given that there were 2 tiles in the bag, yeah, you could, if you're Jackson, play drivings, but why would you give Orry a chance to play 1 tile and create a problem for you somewhere else on the board? So I feel like cat makes some sense to me. Hard to see how you can really lose if you're Jackson. After that, once we give him his points, he's going to be up to 391. Although, is there any possibility of Orry now just playing off his eye and then doing something interesting in the end game? It's been pointed out, Matt, if this were Collins, you would see the eye or Tundra with Ya going down, which would be extremely terrifying as a 1-2 sequence in the end game. No worries about that in this game. And I think even with the best possible sequence, Orry is going to be sunk.
Yeah, or he can't catch up. He has to play QI now because Jackson can play SUQS for like 42 next turn, and that's going to be it for this one. Uh, what an interesting game. I think Jackson actually needed to draw all three of those S's as it shook out, or he would have been able to score enough with drivings and his X
to make it pretty interesting. Yeah, I feel like that 36 pointer would have been quite on this really tight constricted board. 36 points is a ton. So yeah, the SSS draw, which is rarely seen, but does happen from time to time, coming in clutch for Jackson here. And he is going to be riding a wave of a bunch of wins, I think. If we look at Jackson in the standings, yeah, he started off 3-3. He is going to be on a 6-game winning streak.
Oh,
and
yeah.
Matt's dog is loving that 6-game winning streak. And what is his reward? A date with Nigel Richards next round on the live stream. So do not go anywhere, folks. We're watching the tail end of round 12 right here. Maybe the most tantalizing matchup in the entire field, Nigel Richards versus Jackson Smylie, is coming your way shortly after this.
Oh man, Nigel and Jackson. There's no offense to anybody else in the room, but to me, I think pretty soundly the best and second best player in the room. That one's going to be huge. And if Nigel is indeed 12-0, Jackson needs that win, or he's going to be 4 games behind. And he's already used his shot to play Nigel early on in this one. Repeats probably won't start in this tournament until round 19, 20, or 21. So Jackson's going to have one shot to narrow the gap between him and Nigel.
Yeah. I mean, this is round 12. The tournament is 31 games long. Even a player like Nigel can go on a 3 or 4 game losing streak. We have seen it happen in the annals of Scrabble history. It is not unheard of. So people are just going to need to bring their A game and do their best to, give him as good of a fight as Mike Johnson did in the game we just saw. Mike fought very hard, came up short, but I feel like if everybody plays that well as Mike did, we can definitely see a couple losses come Nigel's way. And man, this is a gut check play for Jackson with drivings available for 36. He plays U's instead for just 7. This would scare the hell out of me, Matt. If I'm missing some kind of good play from Orry, you're only up by 13 points. But in fact, Jackson is correctly sussing no outplay for Orry.
I would be devastated in that situation if I were Jackson and Orry surprised me with an out, but this board is just so dead. Not in the cards, can't happen.
Yeah, in somebody mentioning inardently, could that be fun to try? It's not valid. I think that's kind of fun to see if you can create a situation where Jackson would have to let that stay on the board. That would kind of be funny. Content wise, is there anything else Orry can possibly do to put some fear in Jackson here? I was mentioning earlier, Matt, that there are times when the quote unquote top play that the engine wants you to make actually leaves your opponent a very obvious way to win the game. And maybe the best thing you should do is look a little bit further down the list for plays that maybe create some complication or some possibility for your opponent to misplay. That's always something that players at this level are going to be thinking about. But with Jackson holding AIS, there just isn't anything that Orry can do to just stop Jackson from going out somewhere and finishing this thing off.
Yeah, we'll see. This is just going to be rad. Detra, okay.
Yep, Detura for 9. Seems like this is really no different than Tundra in the same spot. I feel like Jackson, technically, he should be playing drivings at some point in this end game, but no reason to risk it with the game on the line like this. Jackson up by 4 points. If he were to try drivings and have it challenged off, that would be the most devastating possible way to lose. I think he's going to play AIS right here. No problem. Easy win. Let's see what he does. Oh, he's not even going to do that. He's going to sacrifice even more points than that, Matt.
Hey, you take your 1,000% sure win. If there's any chance Dicker doesn't take an S, like I would hate to lose the game in that way. So that'll be it for this one. I'm going to try to cut to the mic.
For sure. These players will have a lot to say. Let's hear it.
409, 394.
Dickers is good.
I know. I'm 99%, but
It might have got like removed from WoW or something.
Huh?
It might have got like removed.
no,
from
wait,
WoW.
exactly. So, I was ready to risk the game if need be, but if possible, I'd rather not. Yeah, really interesting.
I messed up. I had one play that I really messed up
Which one?
for sure. But it's just terrible.
Yeah, what was that? I was surprised.
I was going for Ixias. I mean, I kept IX something.
Are you really that desperate?
No,
Can't just go for bingo
yeah, I
or
can
something?
just plunk my X too. But the thing is, there's 3 S's right here.
I wasn't even sure of driving.
Okay, yeah, well, that's good.
I mean,
I thought for sure you had an S at that point.
I drew all 3 with G.
This doesn't even do anything. You just plunk the S. That's why it's terrible.
Right, I mean, because I'm not getting any better than like F's here at most.
I can actually do this. This is cool. But you disrupted so easy. I have Taxi Man.
You had what?
Taxi Man? That's my rank.
So you're at AINTX. So this would be goes for Axite and Axion and stuff like that.
Well, I have it immediately. Look, check this out. Look, I have it. There's Axeman next turn. But you're like, there's 3 A's and 3 S's, so you're going to disrupt that every time.
Yeah, there's so many A's out that you
Yeah.
can't do shit like that. I'm wondering. Yeah, it seems weird. It's just so obvious what you're doing, and so
Oh, you go. Oh, yeah, but either way, yeah.
it's just so obvious what you're doing. I'm wondering if. Jesus.
I should just pump.
I think you should, because this you can set up something.
Yeah,
Really
I didn't think you were unsure of driving. So like, if I can get the X, then I get an S.
Yeah.
Then.
Look, I don't know. Again, if I had to play it, I would. I wasn't sure. I wasn't going to comp. It's like I was less sure than Dickers. I play Dickers. Yeah, interesting game, man. I was really close to blocking ardently.
Well, I have it here. You actually could have. If you made a 5 right there, I would have died.
Intent. I could have picked intent, which I never would have done.
Yeah, I would have died if you played
That would have
zone.
been awesome.
Yeah, just like, wow. Okay.
Jesus. Good game.
I kind of gave up with unmet, and then it worked out. So we got
That's
back
not
in
giving
the
up
game.
play at all.
I mean, yeah, it just kept 3. It was like DR or NRT or I can't remember.
This is fine.
You somehow blocked my bingo. It unrented, so it was unturned through the U and unrented through the E.
Okay. I mean,
You blocked both.
with my own bingo.
So yeah, I just died. I was like, well, okay. guess I'm dead. I didn't expect it to be that close. I messed up. This was bad. I decided I needed a Q stick here, and I could have done something else. I could have played like Dan.
The problem is there's just so many U's, ATs,
Yeah,
S's.
so like you can have Coddy, I can have Coddy. I could still draw Ixias with Dan.
Yeah.
But then
That makes a bit more sense. It's hard to imagine Q sticking me there with this pool.
well, yeah.
We'd have
Actually,
a-
I honestly didn't see Cat, so I only saw QIS, and I was like,
Yeah.
well, maybe the Q's in the bag.
Yeah.
And I can do it.
But yeah, I mean, it's partly just close because of this. I probably could have won by more, but I saw that with this and the QI drop, I was pretty much guaranteed to win. So I was like, I'll take a 15-point win 100% of the time. Just in case QIS here, you hit. It was just a bit dicier.
What's fetal? What did you?
EIN. I just couldn't score enough to block these, and a lot of A's outs. One had the A.
Is Alien A? Is Geeing already done? You should have Alien.
No, EIN.
Oh, easy. Okay.
I lineate. I think this would go because it's close enough where I just bring it within 13, so I can't actually block for free. So it kind of gives you one shot. But feels like I give you one shot to hit. If you can't hit, then I'm gonna block.
It's funny. Yeah, I have Foul and Wold for the exact same score. WOL. Yeah, I should have assumed that you were unsure of drivings and moved from there. That was probably
Probably
the
your best way.
best. Even then, this is terrible.
No way.
Yeah, either way, it's like. It doesn't matter. It's like I could draw an S here, and then maybe.
Yeah. That's not bad. I just think the X drop first seemed right.
Yeah, it does. I'm kind of giving up on my big plays, but that's fine.
Yeah. Almost like MBT shit like that. And it matters.
Yeah, I played Axe to try and Q stick, but it wasn't going to happen. Well, maybe if the Q's in the bag, I can hold on. I left the Q's in the bag. I left two. Yeah, I was hoping the Q was in the bag.
And I make a play and get stuff.
It's really hard with your rack, but I guess it's possible.
Awesome. More like you could block my biggest play. I'm forced to do a play that gives you something. That could happen.
Yeah, Bunker, I kept having bingo leads. There was like RET or REN or something.
Yeah. You drew a bingo.
You just dumped all over. I was surprised to see Fit. Were you worried about the S?
Yeah.
I just kept ERN.
No, but I mean, I kind of figured you didn't keep it there. It's just like I thought that was 4 turns later. It was after you played Arden, so you had a random rack, but there's still 3 S's out. I'm like, I was putting up 43. I was like, this is a pretty dangerous spot. I think.
I just did the same thing against our absence. A bunch of S's at the end. And I couldn't draw any of them.
Yeah. It's I think it was good plays. One of those plays there's only a few people I know that don't actually keep an S that often. Like you're one of them. I'm actually less worried about 4 than some people. Some people only play.
I can also just play AX here. That actually takes it out. But
oh, dude, yeah. Oh, yeah, that seemed obvious.
well,
I didn't even consider that. Because you're going for IS. That's pretty specific.
well, not with 3 S's.
Still.
I thought it was just crazy.
No, that's just,
Yeah.
it's too obvious. You can't do that.
Yeah, you literally have to have a tile to disrupt that, and you do it very easily.
Yeah, if there was not many I's and not that many A's left, then it'd be okay.
Oh wow! I could have won that. That feels bad.
Where you at now?
For 4 losses. Did you check for a better bingo than Burnicle?
Oh.
That seems like it was really hard.
I know, that's what I hate spending 5 minutes to come up with. I mean, there's a Terabic, or Becrime scores more. I'm sure something better. The time I scored Terabic, I saw those. The N just Burnicle. The H just Beacher, I saw those.
Nothing on the O. That's the big one, right?
Oh, Matt saying Burnicle is right. Okay. It's just like, with that, I was like, I'm really playing Burnicle.
Yeah, I wonder if I. It's this play. I mean, that's the biggest play.
Dude, I think no matter what axe, because dude, it's at the score where you can just squeak stuff out, 33 puts you down, not down 6. Obviously, I have tempo, but like on this board, like a couple big swings.
I failed to consider. I just saw the 3 S's, and I was like,
Yeah.
I should probably do something. And then I failed to consider the fact that I could potentially Q stick at that point.
Yeah.
I should have thought more about that.
No, it just like even draw the cue and draw some yourself. I just think like if you were down another 15 points, maybe you're that desperate, but not you.
I gotta play the X there, one way or another. It's either X or
Yeah.
Plunk. View was just like AIOL. I was in trouble.
Yeah, you got it. Again, it forces me to do something about it.
Wow. That was one of the longest postmortems ever, Matt.
I mean, Orry will sit there and dissect positions as long as you let him. Jackson is also more than willing to be a student of the game and analyze each and every turn. But yeah, that one really got in there. Without an engine, it's tough to see all the options, but that was a lengthy post-mortem, which means we're going to have a very, very short break. We know one of our 2 players is already set to go, and surely Nigel finished his game in that time. I suspect we're going to see him lingering around the board if he's not already there.
Yeah, he's probably lurking. As you say, he's probably done because he plays his games with that, clockwork precision. So not going to be long to wait. Again, so many great matchups in the field. Almost want to issue an apology for those of you that might enjoy watching Joey Kravchik versus Orry Swift. Haven't seen Jeff Fishbane versus Saint Vestapunt. Couple other good ones. Kenji Matsumoto versus Joe Edley. I mean, that's another one that would undoubtedly be fun to watch, but I just think there is no way we cannot show Nigel Richards versus Jackson Smylie next round. We do have a poll in the field on YouTube right now. It does feel like there's a solid number of people that might enjoy seeing Annette Obrestad come onto the stream for the first time. We do kind of want to avoid just overdoing the Nigel thing early on, just because there are a lot of other fun players to watch. But I don't know, the poll is pretty overwhelming, Matt.
Nigel, 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 Nigel.